Today, we're going to try to tackle some of the most challenging questions in Marvel Strike Force. So join me, if you will, for another episode of Ask Khasino. What's up, guys? Welcome to episode 0 of Ask Khasino. If you're wondering why episode 0, it's because I want this to be a once-a-week series starting with episode 1. However, if that were today, the day after tomorrow, I'm flying across the country for my brother's wedding, and I'm probably going to miss about a week, so I wouldn't be able to get the very next week's video up, so I'm going to wait, and then that will be episode 1 when it does go up, and then it should be an every week series. But otherwise, it's pretty straightforward. You guys can submit questions to me in my Discord channel, Ask Khasino, and the most upvoted ones I'm going to try to answer here on YouTube. That's it. So without further ado, let's jump into it. First up, Swings a Web asks, are you going to quit MSF for Super War? No. All right, next. LI30 asked, what are your thoughts on Inhuman could possibly counter X-Men becoming new arena meta? I think the Inhumans could possibly counter X-Men and become the new arena meta. I know you were looking for a more specific answer than that, so all I can tell you is they sent us footage of the Inhumans in action at even power, and they beat X-Men hybrid teams, so that's pretty impressive. So it's a little bit early to try to predict exactly what kind of Inhuman hybrids we're going to see in arena, but I do believe that there's going to be some Inhuman members who will start to take over the arena. I already have 4 members of that team decently powered up at this point, and they are really, really strong. I'm really enjoying playing with that team, so yeah, I do think they'll have some arena impact, but it's a little too early to know exactly what, unfortunately. Next up, Skinsy Vinsmoke asked, is this like Valley Flying Q&A? No, this is where you ask Khasino questions. Up next, Zeph asked, as far as balancing out teams is concerned, what do you recommend? Certain characters like Star-Lord and Groot, who are used for Fear the Darkness, are obviously going to have to go to Gear Tier 13. In situations like that, how high would I want my other tunes before it's considered a waste of resources? So it entirely depends on what game mode you're asking about, right? If we're talking Blitz, go as high as you can, you'll get the most points. If we're talking War, again, make them as strong as possible, it'll be a stronger team. It's less about how high do you want them and more about, if you were not putting the resources into them, what would you be putting the resources into? So specifically for that instance, I would say have the other characters balanced up to the point where your Guardians of the Galaxy team reliably wins an 8-3 of Blitz. That's it. Once you have that going for you, I think that's where you can stop pouring resources into those characters, as they're not super necessary. But again, like if you know the Guardians of the Galaxy are some of your strongest characters and they make up a chunk of your arena team, maybe invest more in them. But it's you always have to ask if you should be putting resources in one thing or another, because if you're ever just asking, you know, how much resources should I put in this? Well, everything, max it out. Unless you have a higher priority. I don't know where you're at, I don't know what your priorities are, so that's the best answer I can give you. Good luck. Next up, Roman Architect asked, can we get an update as to why new tiers of daily challenges are taking so long? I'm under the impression that Foxnex mentioned that with level 75, but it never came to fruition. I have no idea. This is not the kind of thing they would tell me, so yeah, I don't know what they're waiting for. Hopefully we find out soon. Up next, Quantum44 said, G'day Khasino, I'm a newish player finishing up with Defenders and currently farming Guardians for Star-Lord and Kree minions for Nick Fury with the goal of creating solid BKT and Shield teams. I'm just wondering what teams you would recommend farming afterwards, as I'm heading into the mid-game and there are so many options and no real roadmap agreed on by the community. So I have really strong feelings on this one, actually. You mentioned that you are powering up BKT and Shield, and it looks like you're going for legendaries, but in my opinion, easily the number one thing that you want to do is open up all the campaign nodes. You want to be able to farm as many campaign nodes as possible, and so I don't see that you've mentioned working on Mystic characters. So if you have already completed Nexus, continue working on your BKT until you've completed all of Cosmic, and once you've completed all the Cosmic campaign, start working on your Supernatural team and try to fill out that Mystic campaign, because every extra node that you open is another opportunity to try to farm for purple gear to power up the characters you want. Plus, of the teams that you've listed, Supernatural is actually a better arena team than BKT and Shield, so Supernatural would also be your new top team. So that's where I would pivot to from there. So good luck. Gully Mullah asked, out of everything coming to the game soon that we know about, what are you most hyped about? Believe it or not, ISO 8. So at this point, I have no idea if ISO 8 is still coming to the game, if they tabled it, if they postponed it, but I am a huge fan of theory crafting and customization. Being able to come up with your own, team lineups and your own builds for characters and have them work in unconventional ways to great success, that is my favorite part of this game by far. So having a way to customize my characters and power them up in a way that perhaps war opponents aren't expecting to be taken by surprise is very much what I'm looking forward to. Zekman86 asked, in hindsight, what would you do differently to make yourself stronger than you are now that is within your control? I think you meant that was within your control at the time. So not much. I mean, I've definitely put resources into some things that didn't fully work out at the time, and I can't stress this enough, there's not that much that you can waste. Sooner or later, everything becomes useful. So for a perfect example is I put a lot of resources into my Spider-Verse at first, and my Spider-Verse have definitely been one of my weaker teams for quite a while now, and I put some T4s in them, I put a lot of time farming and gearing into them, but just the way this game is, the more characters you have available for things like War and Blitz, you tend to get the value out of them. So, I had no idea back when I was gearing up my Spider-Verse that they only really functioned as a roughly even power Coulson counter, or sorry, not Coulson counter, Fury Shield counter, which is kind of out of the question at this point, or was out of the question at that point, because you couldn't farm characters like Carnage high enough to get them even power with the Shield teams. So it wasn't a smart investment then, but I'm glad that I did it anyway, because now that we're getting Symbiote Spider-Man, which I had no idea we'd ever get, now that team is going to be pretty good, and I don't have to put as much into my Spider-Verse to get them up to speed. So stuff like that, I would say currently the biggest one where I'm thinking, man, I sunk a lot of resources into that and it's not currently panning out, is the Wakandans. I kind of trusted that Fox Next was going to deliver on their promise of making Wakandans the Apex raid team, and so far they have not delivered. So I'm getting some value out of Shuri for sure, and a little bit of value out of Killmonger, but for the most part I overinvested in the Wakandans, but I'm okay with that. Because, again, they're a decent war team, they're worth good points in Blitz, and they're very reliable in 8-3 of Blitz, and who knows, one day we might get a Wakandan rework or some new Wakandans, and I might get the value out of that, and I'll already have that there, so yeah, I wouldn't change too much. Luda3 asked, why is Black Panther your most desired 7 Red Star? So, I do want to be clear, I get asked this a lot, and I am not suggesting to anyone that Black Panther is the best character to have at 7 Red Star. He is for sure not the best character to have at 7 Red Star. However, the reason I most want him as a 7 Red Star is because I think he's very fun. I really like the way he can snowball and get a lot of resets, and some of the craziest comebacks I've ever had in matches in this game have been entirely because of Black Panther going on a crazy killing spree, and so I just think it would be a lot of fun to have a massive Black Panther that I could set up team comps around him, with defense downs and leaving people vulnerable, and hopefully just letting him get off some big ults and seeing him take 8, 9, 10 turns in a row. Just seeing what kind of crazy killing sprees I go on would be fun for me, so that's why I'd like him for that. Nut asked, random speculation question, if Nexus 8 and 9 were released, what power level are you expecting the enemies to be similar to Ultimus 7? So, again, there's no way to know. I know you just asked for my speculation, so all I can tell you is this. When the Cosmic Campaign first came out, the final stages of the Cosmic Campaign were nightmare mode. They were super, super tough. Eventually we got strong enough and they weren't so bad, but when they first opened it up, it was absolutely brutal even for the top players. Same of the Mystic Campaign. When the Mystic Campaign first came out, it took us a long, long time to beat the final stages of the Mystic Campaign. So my guess would be if they brought out Nexus 8 and 9, they would make it very, very, very challenging for all but a small handful of players, or maybe even introducing it right when there's a level cap raise or something so that it's super tough for everyone and so no one can clear it right away. That would be my guess, but I have no idea. Thermal Shark asked, I really wanted to ask how does Deadpool's passive actually work, because in my playthrough in Dark Dimension 2 I found out that Minerva's basic bleed did damage while Minerva's alt bleed healed him, which was really annoying. So actually both bleeds work the same way, and that is just a matter of the order of operations on Deadpool's passive, which is specifically bleeds damage him and then he removes that debuff and heals from it. So it entirely depends on how much damage the bleed is going to do. Firstly, if the bleed's going to kill him, he'll just die to the bleed. Assuming that the bleed is not going to kill him, he'll take the damage from the bleed and then he'll remove it as a debuff and heal off of it. So depending on how much damage, again, the bleed was going to do, if the bleed was going to hit him for a small amount, he could heal more and see a net gain in health, whereas if the bleed is very, very damaging, he could heal only part of it back and ultimately end up having taken damage. But yeah, bleeds process before he removes debuffs and heals, and that's that. TaffyDude7 said, can you make a section all about figuring out what Insane Native is talking about? Alright, Hoopty said, would you be in favor of adding a way to grind Red Star rather than be RNG dependent? Maybe something like unlock Red Star 1 by playing X number or Blitz with that character, then Red 2 Blitz and War victories, and have that continually scale in difficulty. If player engagement is something they're looking for, I know I would be excited for something like this and would play constantly to grind Reds on characters I want. I can't believe that this is so upvoted, because I talk about this constantly and I always say exactly the same thing, which is absolutely, I really hate RNG-based progression. That was always one of my biggest pet peeves with Red Stars, and some people have kind of retconned my history with Red Stars to say like I was someone who defended them and said they were great, and I only ever said that I didn't think they were the worst thing ever and I didn't think they would be the death of the game. Lo and behold, turns out they were not the death of the game. But yeah, I've never been a huge fan of them at all, largely because it's RNG-based progression, and my suggestions for how it could be mitigated a bit would be if they gave us enough of them, it wouldn't be that much RNG, kind of like, you know, if you open enough gold orbs, sooner or later you'll hit that 1 mil or that 3 mil. So I'd always been saying, you know, as long as we're getting enough of them, we'll get 6s and 7s and eventually we'll fill out the roster. But for how rare they are, yeah, it's atrocious, and I would much prefer being able to choose who to power up, of course. Alex Samasama asked, one of your videos you mentioned that at the end of the 12 days you will post the top 5 arena defense and offense. When can we expect this infographic? So I want to give you the most honest answer. So firstly, know that that graphic is a huge pain in the butt. I enjoy doing it, and I know that people very much appreciate having that graphic, but yeah, it's a ton of work. Firstly, it takes usually several days of getting the brain trust together, and me and a couple other people I trust basically just argue with each other for 3 days straight and try to figure out what goes where. Then once we have it all plotted out, actually making the graphic, again, takes a ton of time because it's so much to move into which spots, and a lot of times we have to do a lot of testing with the teams to see what really works well. So having said that, just before the end of last patch, we finally got it all ironed out and I had it all plotted out, which means all I had to do was make the graphic, and then we got the announcement that new characters were coming out. So if I had released the last one that I had done, immediately everyone would be asking, well, how does this change with the other Inhumans? What about Symbiote Spider-Man? Does he make top 5 raid team? What about Cyclops or Arena? And so, yeah, basically we need to, you know, re-debate what goes where on that infographic, and so that is currently planned to take place the week I get back. Again, next week I will be out of town for my brother's wedding. When I'm back, I plan to have the next tier list stream, and then after that I intend to iron out the new top 5 teams tier list infographic. I know people have been waiting on it for a while. I am sorry. I try to share, if you ever catch me in the comment section or something like that, I try to advise people on what team they should be using. But yeah, I will make it a priority to get that done. I am upset with how long it's been since the last one was done, but yeah, it takes a lot of time. Xenon asked, when will we have the Bikini Girls coming back for a stream? So I guess the most accurate answer is anytime, potentially. So the Bikini Girls were my former roommate and a couple of her friends. Actually, it was a couple of my roommates and their friends. And so in short, I knew that a couple of them weren't working and needed money, and so people on the stream had offered to give them some money, if they would hang out and be the Bikini Girls for the stream. So while I realized this was a joke question, they have expressed to me that they very much enjoyed it and would love to be able to do it again, in particular to avoid being broke. So if anyone wants to donate for the Bikini Girls to come back, just shoot me an email and I will absolutely make that happen. And I'm sure that they would do like custom video intros for people and stuff like that. Moving on, Trom, I've never learned how to say Trom's name, and he's a regular on the Discord. I'm just gonna call him Trom. Asked, do you have any information about new currency coming to the game since they added space for new shops? Not really. I think they were just kind of thinking ahead and leaving space for new currency. That way, potentially, if they want to ever add new currency or a new shop or new game mode, they wouldn't have to redo and rearrange everything again. It's possible that some version of ISO 8 that we see will have currency or a shop or something attached to it, so maybe that, but yeah, I think they're just thinking ahead. Torpin asked, how do block and deflects work exactly regarding negative effects, any percent? So this is actually a good question from the testing that we've seen. So every character has a block chance and a block amount. So block chance is a percentage chance to block something, and then the block amount is how much damage it reduces. Now, almost every character's default block amount is 25%, but some characters have a higher block amount, like Captain America has a higher block amount. I think his base is higher, and then it's with certain Avengers, but yeah, a handful of characters have a higher block amount. So, from what we can tell, Deflect has a base chance before it goes to focus and resist, based on the block amount. That is the likelihood that it can just block the debuff application. So for example, if you're trying to offense down someone with a deflect and they have the base 25% block amount, then right off the bat you have a 25% chance that that debuff just gets blocked. And if it gets through that, then it actually goes to a focus resistance roll. But good question. Free Pizza asks, will Cerebro or another FoxNext employee do another Q&A with you? I really enjoyed your Q&A last year. Probably. So last I heard, they said they were very happy with how that went. They would absolutely be open to doing another, and we've talked about it. I have a couple people in mind, potentially the other community manager, Zeke's, potentially one of the people on the combat design team, because I have a lot of nerdy questions I'd love to ask them. So it looks like there will be another one, but there's no exact date or anything, so there's nothing I can announce, but yeah, they're open to it, and I'm pushing for it, so probably is the answer. MSF asked, don't Blitz predictions cause inflation of the numbers? If there weren't any, maybe all the final numbers could be much lower. I think predictions jack up the competition. Blitz numbers are getting out of hand. So we get this a lot, so I'm happy to finally have this in a video that I can address. No, they don't. Now, to say that Blitz predictions have zero impact on the scores, they definitely have some impact on the scores, but you can tell, I mean, I think like 2 blitzes ago, every one of us overshot it. For like the top 2,000, we were all off by like 1.5 mil, and it wasn't even something crazy. I think we went like 6 mil, and it ended up being like 4.5 mil for the character. And so those scores are if we were trying to drive up the scores, which of course we never are, you know, that was not a big gap for people to close. But no, ultimately the scores are what they are. Again, there may be a few people that try to push slightly higher, but we just always try to predict what it is, and so you'll notice it's not uncommon for us. Again, we're usually just pretty spot on, but it's not uncommon for all of us to have overshot it, which only happens if the scores are not rising to meet our predictions. So definitely not. And then I also want to mention this because people like to cite this. They love to say things like, Blitz numbers are getting out of hand. God, the scores are just getting so crazy. Here's the thing. Rosters only get bigger, right? It's not like you're gonna log in tomorrow and be like, oh, okay, I lost a lot of collection power. No, you're just gonna get more characters and they're gonna get stronger, so every day you're able to score more points in Blitz. Well, that is true of every other player in this game. So as people are able to score more and more and more, the scores are just gonna go up and up and up and up, and that's just how it's gonna be. All right, next, Stochasticism asked, what are your thoughts on FoxNext not getting out a strike time this week? They had 3 weeks to plan this and could not live up to their promise to answer a lot of the concerns of the community. So a few things here. Firstly, it doesn't bother me. They communicated right away that they were pushing it back a week. And yeah, it's not that they couldn't get it done. which I'll talk about in a sec, but so saying that they had 3 weeks to plan this, I mean, this was over holiday time. As I understand it, at least a couple of people involved in the production of A Strike Time were actually out of town or on holiday with their family, whatever it is. So I don't think, they just had 3 weeks where they were just kicking rocks instead of actually working. And then as for why it got pushed back, I don't know the exact reason that it got pushed back, but I'll tell you this, which is usually pretty common. A lot of times they'll be told, from the powers that be, you can talk about this, you just have to wait until this date, or whatever it is, we're still finalizing this, so you're limited in what you can say if you release it today, but by next week we'll definitely have those numbers finalized and you'll be able to tell them the numbers behind such and such feature as well. So as I understand it, it got pushed back so that they could give us more concrete information rather than make an announcement that was going to get them flooded with questions anyway. So that was my understanding of it, which is why I'm not upset at all. Plus, it's just a week. I can wait a week. And finally, our final question for episode 0, Hanarms asked, what is your cat's name? My completely fictitious cat's name is Sir Roderick Fluffathorn III. So, all right. Thank you guys very much for submitting your questions. Again, I will be doing this again, and it will be a weekly series. There's a channel on my Discord server, which anyone can join. The channel is Ask Khasino, so go ahead and join that and ask your questions. Thank you guys very much for checking this out, and I will see you guys real soon. Until then, peace! Thanks again, everyone, and join us next week as we explore the tragic story of a subreddit that has been experiencing butthurt for years. Until next time.